Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory, presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our incredible partners in possible here at KC Sports Network. It's a Wednesday. That means it's a Matter Day. Matt Swanson here with Matt Hamilton and Matty Lane. Matthew Lane, how are we?
Listen, as always, we're going along. Draft's getting closer. Had a nice day. It's my daughter's first birthday, so spent all day doing birthday stuff for her first. Is my youngest of 3 kids now, so we've gotten plenty of practice with this. We are ready to go. But it was her birthday today, so we had a lot of fun with that. So it was a good day. It's a good day, Kent.
I'm glad to hear. Hamilton, did you celebrate a first birthday today?
I did not. You guys got me beat there. Did celebrate the second anniversary with my wife yesterday, and doing some more celebrating this weekend. So we do have that.
You got any big plans?
Yeah, we're making a little trip tomorrow to one of our favorite spots. One of the first places we went when we started dating. So it's
you want to give us
nice.
the coordinates for the time? And see if we can all miss it.
Room number, yeah.
Oh, room number. Oh, I thought we were talking about a restaurant here, Hamilton.
Wow, Kent, way to take it there. Sheesh.
Sorry,
Kent.
I inferred something else. I guess I didn't know. Forget it. Great start to Great start to a Matter Day.
Just let it breathe for a second.
I'm good. Woo! What a professional show we have here at KC Sports Network. I can't. I'm sorry.
You're not going to recover, are you? Okay, so thank you guys all for joining us. Joining us on this wonderful Matter Day. We're going to give Kent some time to collect himself. And while he does that,
Tucker, you want to get in here? Let him compose himself. Towel off.
Woo. Just hey, the KCSN Draft Guide has released earlier this week. We appreciate everybody out there that has already gotten your copy. I hope you guys are all enjoying it. If you have any questions, you are sending them all to Kent Swanson on Twitter or X or Blue Sky. Let him know any issues that you have, but the link was in the description. If you're listening and you haven't got it yet, I really think if you're listening and you haven't got it, you probably should. It only makes sense. You're here listening. There's a lot more information about the draft as it pertains to the Chiefs coming up in that thing. So go ahead and hit that link, go in there, snag your KCSN Draft Guide. And like I said, any questions, go to Kent.
Yeah, actually, that is true. By the way, it really is. So appreciate
I gotta say, I feel like it gets better and better every year. I've been diving into it. You guys did a fantastic job as always, but I feel like it gets even more comprehensive every year. I've dug through it. There was one that I avoided because I didn't want it to cloud my homework assignment. But absolutely, this is a must. If you're a Chiefs fan, if you're just a draft fan or, want to catch up on the draft, it is such a fantastic read. And I can't wait to keep going through it as we get closer.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. I think it was the cleanest version we've ever done. It's because Maddie got me all of his articles in time, and so did everyone else in the.
I'm never late.
No, Maddie's not the problem. Maddie's not the problem, if we're being honest. But no, it turned out really well. I was really happy with all of that, and I appreciate that. And
the way you guys tailor it to like the Chiefs trends and stuff, that stuff is fascinating. It's really, you're getting the great info on the prospects, but really how they fit the Chiefs and the tendencies that each has. All that stuff is just so good.
I think we'll weave some of that tendency stuff here in a little bit, because we've got a fun prop game that we're going to play, kind of, I think, setting some of the pockets that we think the Chiefs could be playing in the NFL draft, but we're kind of using overs and unders as kind of our representation of that. So I think it'll be an interesting game that we kind of look into that a little bit here later in the show. But I don't know if we teased this or not. I can't remember if we teased this last week or not, but
I think we did.
I think we did. We decided we're going to give Hamilton homework. every week leading up to the draft. And we were going to give him just like one prospect to kind of deep dive in on, and then we'll spend some time on Wednesdays breaking one of those players down. Now, obviously, we don't have very many weeks left until the NFL draft. We've only got a few weeks here. So we're working on a short list, right? We're just going to kind of work on a short list that ties really closely to some of the players that we think could be in range for the Kansas City Chiefs. We've spent a lot of time talking about Josh Simmons, and Hamilton's already done some film work on Josh Simmons, and I think he even brought it to the table a couple weeks ago. So that was like a abbreviated version of Hammy's homework. But today we are going all in on one player. So last week I think we assigned one player to Matt Hamilton, and that player was Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen. This is a player that we'll get into it. Let's talk. Let's just talk in. Let's just jump in with some of this. Hamilton, give me your initial thoughts when you put the tape of Walter Nolen on.
Well, there's a lot to like. Incredibly explosive out of his stance. I love the power that he delivers. That initial shock that he delivers to opposing offensive linemen is deadly. The way he's able to just knife through blocks and shoot his way into the backfield. Super, super impressive. Slippery, tough to get hands on. And I like that he can kind of play everywhere too. I mean, he's an ideal 3-tech, but you see him line up at 1-tech, slide out to 5-tech. And he's effective from all of them. He can hold up against some double teams. I also like running games with him, the way he's able to turn the corner and just explode. Really, really impressive. There is a little bit of sloppiness at times. I think he loses his leverage. He gets a little high. I think especially when he's a little bit gassed. You see him play a little bit high, and no matter how strong you are, which he is, plays very strong, you lose that leverage. It's tough to recover from at times. He also kind of dips his head on some of those stunts in games, which I don't love. And sometimes stops his feet on contact. But overall, like, that's all stuff you can fix, right? Like, all the traits are there. And I do, like, I don't love player comps generally. I especially try not to do too many player comps to guys who are future Hall of Famers, but you can't not watch him and see a little bit of 95 in him. Just the size, the speed, the ability, the versatility across the line. But I mean, if this is a guy, like, there are all pro traits out of him, and if he's a guy you can get late in the first, I think that's a huge win. And I know, as I said, like, there's a lot of stuff he's got to clean up. But when you look at the traits, like, there are the makings of a really freaking good defensive tackle there for a long time.
Yeah, I love Walter Nolen's play on the field. There's some off-field stuff, and actually, I do want to get into it. There's actually been some information that has been, publicly shared about the off-field stuff. So I feel like we can finally talk about it, and it's not just guesswork at this point in time. But on the field, I mean, I watched Walter Nolen, and I think the first game I really dove into the film was against Georgia. And I think I was watching with Kent. I mean, I'd already liked him from watching him live, but it was against Kent, and we were watching together.
Against Kent, he said.
Yes.
Which actually probably is kind of true.
It could happen.
I think it was over Christmas break. I think it was Christmas weekend.
Something like that. Yeah. And so I watched him live plenty. A big fan already, but then here we go. We're breaking him down, and we're just watching. It's against Georgia, and Georgia's got great athletes all over the place. Ole Miss's defense is here. Great athletes all over the place. But there was one guy on both sides that was just consistently moving differently. And it's not just the speed, it's not just the explosion, the flexibility. It's just, you watch him, he was moving Georgia's interior offensive linemen, who are very good football players. Like, all three of the starters will be drafted in this draft, probably in the top 150, 175 picks. He's moving them against their will almost routinely. And it was incredible. And then any game you pick, it's there's going to be some plays like that. Against some games, he doesn't have as many because the effort may come and go as the level of competition does, but he just does some stuff that no other defensive tackle in this class can. And that includes Mason Graham, who is everyone's D tackle one, which I get. He does stuff that Mason Graham can't do. He has a certain blend of power, explosion, violence to his game that other guys can't have. So like, it's just, the upside is through the roof. No, he measured in, if I'm not mistaken, at like 6'4", 296 pounds, 32-inch arms. Across the board, pretty good. You would prefer probably a little bit longer arms. So he's got a little bit shorter arms, but like we're talking, this is a 3-tech size player. He has no interest in 2-gapping. So, we're not a 3-4 defensive end. We're not out here trying to play nose tackle predominantly. It's pretty clear his strengths align with his body type and the power and the explosion and the ability to penetrate and get into the backfield. Like, there's just so many strengths. I want to come back and talk about some of the weaknesses again in a second, but I wanted to let Kent get in here and talk about them too.
No, I think you guys have done a really good good job summarizing a lot of the things that make him what he is. He will, when he's turned on, he lives in the backfield, and he is just an absolute problem. He is just in a gap, and there's nothing you can do about it. And he is dominating physically, but he's got a good hand technique, I think, too, to get himself clean and get in a gap. I do think it's funny, Hamilton. So we did not comp Walter Nolen to Chris Jones in the KCSN draft guide. I know you said you skipped that page. Mad respect to you. I think that's a great process. We try to follow some of that stuff too. Leonard Williams was the comp.
I like that.
Was the one that we kind of gave for him. But I do want to give you a couple. I do want to give you a couple of things here that I think you're going to find very interesting. Yeah. Our evaluator, he's fine on the defensive tackles. I'm just kidding. No. Strengths: an uber talented athlete that shows first step explosion off the line of scrimmage to penetrate through the offensive line. So that was the first line in strengths. We heard explosion. Weaknesses: there are times where Nolen's pad level can get too high.
There you go.
And hold on, I just lost it. And how he fits. Just watch this. It gets better. Nolen has a lot of similarities to Chris Jones coming out of college. You did good, man.
Funny. That's funny.
I think you saw a lot of the same things. I think that we did. I think that we did through the KCSN draft guide. So
I didn't realize the character, because I also try not to Google. Like, I looked up his combine information. I try not to Google other than that. Like, I wanted to keep it very much to what I was seeing, not let anything taint my opinion. So I'm interested to hear about that, Maddie, too.
So I think shout out our guys, Zach Geisen. He did the write-up for the D tackles in the KCSN draft guy. Good job. He's a young kid too. But I do real quick, and you can get back into Walter Nolen. One thing that I know I think Mizzou guy, Therese Paylor, the great Therese Paylor. That's something that I always stuck with me is like you avoid evaluations, you avoid the content from other people as you're trying to formulate your own opinions. It's a great process to just have in general. It's something that we've kind of lived by. Like it's something since Therese kind of talked to me about it, 8 years ago or however long it's been, which has been a while. It's just something that's really stuck with me. And I think it's good process, and mad respect to you for kind of doing it that way, because I do appreciate that. I think it's good. Anyways, Maddie Lane, what were you going to say?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to come back to the negatives real quick. The biggest negative I think against Nolen, it plays into the pad level, some of the head ducking and stuff like that. There are times where I think Walter Nolen cares more about beating the player across from him than winning the play. I think he would rather embarrass the blocker than he would win the play. And there's times where I think you see that. He hits a swim move. He, hits a hump move on a guy, throws him off to the ground. And instead of immediately knowing where the ball is and going to pursue it, he's just has to go find it because he just spent so much time focusing on beating the block. So I do think that is something that we'll have to get better at the next level. You don't always have to embarrass the blocker. Sometimes you can, if you get to his outside shoulder and you're faster and stronger than him to run through, you don't have to put him on the ground. You can just continue into the backfield and actually stop the play versus embarrassing a guy. So I do think that there is some hey, let me show how good and physically dominant I am that does end up hurting his game. And that also pertains to Chris Jones back in college. I will say
that's also something I wrote. I said so explosive and aggressive, it borders on out of control sometimes. He's just he abandons his gap. He's runs by the ball carrier. He's got to learn how to control that a little bit. But yeah, it is. I mean, that punch that he gets is it consistently is just
Yeah.
is unbelievable.
And then to pair that with just flexibility, to, like as a D
Yeah.
tackle, to have like some ankle flexion where he can put his foot in the ground and like pivot his ankle around his ankle and go give chase. It's phenomenal. That's all the good, the little bit of bad that we have. But here's the big thing I think working against Walter Nolen is there's some off-field questions. So we've been hearing about this stuff going back to the Shrine Bowl. I mean, if you paid close attention, he didn't have the cleanest recruiting coming out of high school. It was a big ordeal. It didn't sound like he was the easiest high school player to deal with. He's also the number one player in the country. I can almost guarantee you every number one player in the country has a similar story. But he gets to Texas A&M. There's ups and downs. So he's there for the 2 years. His final year at Texas A&M, there's a story running around that he was bad-mouthing recruits on visits to Texas A&M. He was bad-mouthing Texas A&M's NIL collective. And so when he and Texas A&M, or not Texas A&M, sorry, Texas A&M, when they part ways, they're on bad terms just because he apparently not chased off, but he bad-mouthed their NIL collective to high school recruits. And so I think that rubbed people the wrong way. But if that was it, I'm like, okay, whatever. Maybe he didn't get paid on time once or twice and gets annoyed. Like they were still trying to figure out NIL. But it was an ESPN article today from that was posted today about, funny enough, polarizing prospects, which we're getting into too. He was on there, but it was reported in there, and it was from, anonymous AFC front office person or whatever. They heard that he would leave practice when he would get frustrated early. He would just like, nope, I'm done practicing for the day, and leave the practice. And it sounds like stuff like that has finally, has happened on more than one occasion. So just the fact that it's finally like printed out there for everyone to see, because I've been trying to figure out what these other off-field things are, or if it was just the NIL collective thing. And like that's a shrug of the shoulders to me. You're messing with someone's money potentially. That's separate. But if you're walking off a practice because you get frustrated and it was put in there specifically multiple times, that's a noticeable red flag. That is something that does have to be flushed out. And I think now you're starting to build a case that off field, he's maybe not a clean prospect.
And I do, I think you got to read between the lines a little bit on some of this too, right? Where I don't think the entire book's out on Walter Nolen either. Like from a public perspective, right? Those are the things that we have knowledge of. And it's not fair to the kid or any kid to try to create too many blanket statements. But here's, I think, one thing that's at least notable, right? Is look, we have Walter Nolen as one of the 10 prospects that got a first round grade from us. Like it's absurd that a player with the kind of talent that he has and the kind of ability that he has is even in consideration down at the end of the first round. But there's really no one refuting the idea that one of the 10 most talented players in this entire class is going to be available at the end of the first round. That tells you something, right? Even if those two issues are just in a vacuum, it's enough for these teams to say, not for me. I'm not going to be the one willing to take that risk. I'm not going to be the team that's going to go do that and take that swing on the elite talent, right? We'll obviously see where the draft range is for him, but there doesn't seem to be any momentum whatsoever for Walter Nolen to be a guy that's going to be going in the top 15 picks. Like you just do not see that under consideration when you see the kind of talent that he has. It's hard to ignore that context outside of just the stuff that is public or isn't public. So,
and I do want to follow up with some of these quotes. I just wanted to follow up with some of the quotes from the same article here. NFC executive, impressive traits, and we were fine with his interviews. And it sounds like some teams maybe didn't have the greatest of interviews with him. That was mixed results. But, some impressive, fine with the interviews. Somebody else said he's been searching for solutions. He's a young player. So, there's some belief that he is trying to improve upon the quote-unquote character issues and stuff like that. Your hands will be full. You'll need a real plan for him. This is off the field, but he has some coach says he will have a hard time seeing him fall out of the top 20. So again, these doesn't mean take it for, that these things are perfect or like absolutely what's going to happen. It just sounds like, we're starting to see a little bit of light be shed on the off-field stuff. And it seems like some teams at the very least that talk to, I believe this is from Jeremy Fowler here, that are having at least hope that it will get better.
Yeah. And I think that's something you have to consider too, right? These are kids that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
These are not always, some of these guys are super mature and super polished. Some of them need to grow up. And we have seen, the Chiefs we've joked about it at times, but like the Chiefs have had a lot of hits by taking on some of these guys that might have some maturity issues. And I think, they've been able to at least straighten it out on the field. Sometimes off the field, it still becomes an issue, but I think that's the hope. And when you have a regime like this, like with a coach like Andy Reid that's had that success with Mahomes, with Travis Kelsey, with, when you surround them with those types of people, you can hope you can straighten it out. Like if you're a young team that doesn't really have that type of stuff in place or that type of clout in the building, it might be a little bit harder. I think that is something that, if I'm the Chiefs, you can kind of count on your leadership to hopefully, again, and don't want to make blanket statements. Everybody's different, but if it's somebody you feel like you can work with and wants to improve and acknowledges that maybe they have some behavior that needs working on, you surround them with the right people. You hope you can straighten that out.
And I think teams with stronger cultures and stronger locker rooms and the right fits in that defensive line room are going to be the ones that are going to think about him a little bit more than some of these other teams. So if you feel like you have those boxes to check, like it's a player that has tremendous talent. Someone's going to take a swing on him. I'm just curious to see where that is. Because that I think they'll tell you a lot about, because the tape is the tape. I mean, it's wildly impressive. And so
yeah, sorry. He's a defensive tackle. Like you don't need him to be, the citizen of the year. Like
I want my pass rushers to be a little crazy. Like let's do it. You want them to be a little bit off their rocker, right? Like that's kind of necessary.
Yeah. So that's a good point. We'll see who takes the chance on Walter Nolen. Could it be the Chiefs? Maybe. We'll find out. But we're gonna find out here in a couple of weeks of the NFL draft. But we're gonna take a break and we'll be back right after this.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story. Like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Are you ready to win some real cash during the basketball playoffs? Well, check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 posterizes the competition. And yeah, that includes prize picks. Hit all your picks and score higher minimum payouts on Pick 6, plus even more cash if you outscore the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. New players get 50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to play $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
That was a very professional ad read from Tucker D. Franklin.
What was it? I saw a suggestion for an audiobook version of the draft guide narrated by Tucker D. Franklin. I think there's something to that. I think we got to do it.
On it.
Yeah. What? Who's to say that? Who's to say that we didn't? We had him do all the cornerbacks in his Tim Robinson impression. It was great. Tucker, what? Tucker, what's for dinner, by the way? What you got? What you got
Why
there,
are you
man?
doing this to him? Let him eat in peace.
Lemon Parmesan chicken.
Dude, it looks so good.
It's hidden right now. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm just saying, man. That looks delightful. Sorry, put him on a spot there. Anyways, wanted to get into some of the maybe the prospects that are kind of polarizing right now. Like I think this time of year you're starting to see, starting to see some consensus in some places, but I think you also start to see a lot of people, the differences in people's opinions, especially because this kind of feels around the time you start getting some more glimpses on where some of these NFL teams are seeing these guys. You're starting to see the influence of the NFL teams kind of coming into the conversation with some of these players. And so we thought we'd throw a few polarizing prospects out there that might, kind of have some differing opinions. So Maddie Lane, give me one of yours.
Listen, I think this one's, this is kind of topical because I believe it was Rhett Lewis of NFL.com had Teteroa McMillan falling to the Chiefs, and wide receiver out of Arizona falling to the Chiefs in his latest mock draft. And while I don't anticipate that happening whatsoever, I do think that there's a chance that the NFL as a whole is a little bit lower on T-Mac, as he has asked to be called, than a lot of social media people that cover the draft. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense whatsoever. It's just, it feels like he's the online social media, like gen population, easy, clear-cut wide receiver one, with people trying to push him up into the top 10, saying he's a top 10 player, top 5 player in the overall class. And it feels like when you have people that do their mock drafts or how they speak about the wide receivers based more on what they hear from NFL teams, he seems to be a little bit lower. And I don't think it's overly a coincidence that I think Daniel Jeremiah now has him down to wide receiver 3 and his big board. And then now you have another mock draft coming from NFL.com where he is down to the pick 31 in the draft. I would be ecstatic with that pick. I can also acknowledge I don't buy into the T-Mac as a top 10 player in this draft kind of thing. I think he's a very good mid to late round 1 wide receiver that has some flaws that you see out of players of his archetype, but also does a lot of really good things that you see out of players of his archetype. Plus, he's a little bit more fluid than most guys that are 6'4", 220. So this isn't to say he's a bad player or anything. It's just, I have noticed there's been some more movement and discrepancy in where people have him ranked. And I do think that some people kind of overrate how well he separates and gets open, and they try to make him into a type of wide receiver that he's not. He's not going to be a guy that creates a ton of separation at the NFL level, and that's kind of hard to push as a top 10 pick, I think, in the NFL right now, and I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and we had Dylan and Jeremiah on Up and Adams on Monday, and that's what he was kind of breaking down to us too. The separation thing is definitely going to be an issue, but as you said, he does move fluidly, and with that frame, and he uses his frame well, can be a really productive receiver in this league for a long time. It's just there's a ceiling, I think, on what he's going to be able to accomplish, and that's why, to me, like when I watch him, I don't see a top 10 pick. I see a guy who's probably going to be a good receiver in this league, but I think it's probably the potential is capped a little bit there.
I think that actually, Tet McMillan was one of the ones I had written down as like somebody to potentially talk about here, because he's not doing a ton to kind of slow down the narratives around him. And what I mean by that is like he's really not done a ton with the athletic testing side of things to really help, maybe create some of the concerns. Like didn't participate in the combine and comes out and does the pro day stuff. Well, the pro day stuff's a lot trickier to kind of try to evaluate. Was thrilled to be in the 4.5s, reportedly. Like that kind of tells you like there might be some concerns about the athletic profile, and big receivers that struggle to separate consistently, that don't check the boxes athletically, they give me a ton of pause. They make me very nervous. And, it's not that there's not a path to success, because when you hit with that kind of profile, you really hit. But when you don't, you flame out. It's a very high variance profile to me at the receiver position that by nature is polarizing, because you can make an argument for these big body guys that struggle to separate aren't these great athletes, and then you can make an argument for the Drake Londons of the world, the Mike Evanses of the world. Like you can make the case for those guys too. So it's just I think this is a profile that I struggle with, and I tend to try to shy away from. That being said, like if he's really going to be near 31, like
right, no, that's like towards the bottom end of the range that I think makes sense for him. And like there's guys in the NFL that have similar profiles that win. Like, and I see a lot of Drake London go out there. I don't think he plays that physical. I don't think he plays as physical as a T Higgins, or as he's not as good at the catch point as Higgins is, right? But
Yeah.
I go to somebody like Cortland Sutton, right? I think that's kind of
Yeah.
closer to how I see him being in the NFL. And like, if you could go back now, Cortland Sutton probably doesn't get he's a second round pick. He probably doesn't go there when you see that he was able to translate to the next level, because he was the lower level of competition for him was part of the issue and stuff like that. So it's just, that's more of like the vein I see him in. And I think that's a good player in the NFL. That's very much worth a first round pick. And because of like, I think how fluid of a mover he is, I don't think he's explosive. That's where I think he lacks the separation. He's not explosive off the line of scrimmage or out of his breaks, but he's fluid. And so there is more upside there than maybe even for a Sutton or some of these other guys that flame out. But yeah, pick 31, I'm all aboard it. If we're talking about him as a top 10 pick, even in this class, like that was a hard sell for me when we were at that point. So I am interested to see who is right here, the insiders, quote unquote, or just people that are scouting and say, just watch the tape.
Yeah, and I think I love that Cortland Sutton comp. I think that's the right one, because I've seen a lot of others. Like I've seen the Mike Evans out there. I don't really see that when I watch him. I think Cortland, and again, that's a very good, productive wide receiver for a really long time. But when you can't consistently separate, it's hard. Again, I just think it caps your ceiling. Like I don't think he's the guy we're going to see putting up, 1,500-1,600 yard seasons consistently because of that reason.
I'll throw another polarizing player out there. And I think you've seen some buzz as early as like the 5th pick overall, and then you kind of just have a lot of questions after that. Jalen Walker, the linebacker, edge rusher, whatever you want to call him, however you want to call him, out of Georgia, and I think that's part of the difficulty in the evaluation and why some teams are going to view him a little bit differently than others, and some teams may not be as high on him because he doesn't necessarily fit their scheme, right? So Walker as a pass rusher, there's a lot to like there off the edge, and there's a lot of promise, but he was a part-time player at that position. And, was it somebody that you were utilizing on early downs a lot as an on the line of scrimmage player, right? You're moving him off the ball. You're having him, blitz a little bit. You're having him, play from a stack position instead of, keeping him on the line of scrimmage consistently. He is, by all indications, beloved as a leader in that Georgia program, high character football. But the tweener narrative around him is, I think, something that is kind of just sticking with him and probably creating, a lot of varying opinions on how to stack and how to utilize and what to do with Jalen Walker Hamilton.
Yeah, and that's I think maybe more than anybody else in this draft outside of the quarterback position. He's somebody whose situation and the way he's utilized is going to matter tremendously. And I think we talked about it a little bit last week, Maddie. Like Hassan Reddick is somebody who really comes to mind, and he was utilized horribly in Arizona. And it took him getting to a place where they're going to put him on the edge a little bit more. And I think it was Carolina was the first stop after Arizona where, okay, we're going to use him more as a pass rusher where he excels. And that's when his career was able to ascend the way it did. But from an athletic standpoint, I mean, he is the way he's able to just turn it on and go 0 to 60 and, in a split second it just jumps off the tape. And you mentioned the character and leadership stuff, Ken. We've interviewed Kay and I, going back to Good Morning Football, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of prospects. I'd say he was in the top 5 most impressive as far as just his presence, the intelligence, just, his being personable, just being likable. And he just has this gravitational pull to him where you cannot love him as a person when you talk to him. He was as impressive as it gets and as put together as it gets. So, you're getting, and even just when we talked to Dave Canales about him, he wouldn't stop talking about his leadership and his character and how much he loves him as a person. So, that really stands out too. So, you're getting a high character guy in there with those type of athletic traits. You gotta be creative defensively, I think. And as you said, like stack him, find ways to use him to take advantage of what he really does best, which is using that speed and athleticism to get after the ball carrier, get after the quarterback.
Yeah, he's a tricky one for all of us. I think when, anytime I've talked about him, it's like, I don't know what to do with him. I have kind of left him in the off-ball linebacker camp. And, there's obviously rush potential there, but even his rush potential, I don't think you can line him up as even as any old defensive end. It's got to be like a wide 9 situation. You can't line him up like right off the shoulder at the tackle, because his path to winning is just outpacing guys up the arc. I'm not saying he has no pass rush moves, just at his size and his lack of length, he really needs to outpace guys up the arc, which he has the athleticism to do. You just got to widen that angle out a little bit. So not only is like overall his position fit a little wonky, it is a little scheme specific as a rusher. And so that gives me, that makes me have to double take. But when I go back and watch, I don't think he's a super clean off-ball linebacker, but I do think that there is enough there as an off-ball linebacker on early downs that you feel at least comfortable playing him there. Like, he's not going to be a problem playing off-ball linebacker on early downs. You just got to figure out if you are the type of team that can utilize him as a rusher later on or not to justify a earlier pick. Now, same thing. I can be completely missed with top 5. Maybe even top 10 stuff for him. Like, I think that's a little rich for this archetype of player. But before, coming back around on his ability as an off-ball linebacker, I was even like, I don't even know if I can fully buy in on first round. I'm at least back to that point, because I don't think you have to keep him off the field for first and second down until you get to third and long.
We just saw a tweener, linebacker, edge rusher. What is he? Who knows? As a first-team All-Pro, Zach Bond for the Philadelphia Eagles kind of found his niche. And I mean, like, he's a guy that like kind of was in that role, in that kind of like, what is he? I remember having these conversations, and what is he, and can he rush enough to do that here and all that. We had these conversations when we were doing the KCSN draft guide when he came out as a rookie. So, I think a good, smart defensive coordinator will find a role for him, and like I think the character will shine and be something that you want in the locker room. Hamilton, do you have like one quick polarizing player to get out of here, or should we jump into this? Should we jump into something else?
I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I still can't figure out what to do with Shamar Stewart.
Yeah.
You just watch him move, and you look at the measurables, and you see everything that he's capable of doing, and you want to take him in the first round, and then you just look at the production and like, why was he not able to get on the field more consistently? And it scares the crap out of you, but the potential there, the ceiling is so intriguing to me. I legitimately, like, if I'm in a spot, like if the Chiefs are sitting there and he's there, like, can you pass on that guy? I really don't know.
I think that's a good one, because you see a guy that tested like Myles Garrett, and like the tape's not bad. It's just some of the production numbers aren't as consistent with like actually bringing the quarterback to the ground and some of that kind of stuff.
I think my biggest thing for him is just, I don't know how well he sees the game. And then I think you like add that on to the rumors coming out of the combine that maybe he didn't interview. I don't want to say poorly, but he wasn't impressive, I think, is kind of like the phrasing it's been in interviews. Makes me kind of wonder if that's where the issue came in. Is just because, like, I think when you watch him, like, you can see like there's definitely some like clear processing from, here's the snap, here's my move, okay, now I'm winning, what's next, where's the ball, where do I go? Just like, it doesn't flow naturally. And this isn't a guy that's played zero football, right? Like, he's not a late comer to football, he's not a late transition to defensive end. He's played a lot of snaps, but he in the same system, well, not the same system, but he's been on the same team, and he's still trying to tie it all together. So like, I don't know if I can excuse that right now. That said, he's the same level of athlete as Myles Garrett. Like, how long can you really hold off on pulling that trigger, right? And now it does seem like we're kind of everybody in the draft community is coming together to say, he's probably more back half of the first round now, rather than that like really early top 5 hype I think he got leading up or right at the combine. So I do think we're settling on the proper sweet spot for him as we get closer, but it's a tough one.
Well, I think the lack of, I think how long it's taken is probably indicative of that a little bit too. Registration is officially open for Hope Faith 2025 Disc Golf Tournament on June 14th, 2025. Sign up your team for for $100, all proceeds benefiting Hope Faith programs and services. Included in your registration, you're getting lunch, refreshments, a disc, a morning of friendly competition, raffles, and prizes. Sign up now using the link in the description of this show. Hope Faith Homeless Assistance Campus is KCSN Foundation's Feed It Forward partner. So check that out. Link is in the description of the show. I'm not going to do a game show here, but
What?
I'm not doing a character. I'm not doing a bit. Matt Swanson's
Boo.
but I did put a little game together for us today.
Negative points.
Is he going to judge my game? Of course he is.
That's the game, is scoring.
Whoa.
Oh,
What do
no.
we have here?
Oh, boy.
Get out of here. I think get a little vibes check from all of us today on where we see the draft going for the Kansas City Chiefs, making us pick a few things here or there. And so what I did is I put some props together for this draft, and basically like the round that the Chiefs will draft this player. If you take over, that means you don't think they're drafting one at all. In some or it can mean that, I guess, is a better way of saying it. It can mean that, or it can just be like I think it's going to be after the round that I give you. So we're gonna go kind of through all these. Instead of just doing like 3 positions over under 1.5, I just gave us like the 3 biggest positions that I think the Chiefs will potentially take, and in the first round. If you just pick whichever one you want.
My games are confusing, apparently.
This is easy. It'll get a lot easier as I explain. So I'm gonna give you 3 positions. Give me the position that you think the Kansas City Chiefs will be taking in the first round: offensive tackle, 3 technique, or edge. Give me one of those 3. Hamilton, which one do you think that they're taking?
It's been going back and forth in this one. It feels like the winds are shifting week by week. Right now, I'm gonna say offensive tackle. I'm gonna say offensive tackle.
Under.
Okay.
Oh, it's not over unders yet? Okay, my bad. Okay, question. 3, are we limiting this to 3
Yes.
tech? So like
Yes.
Tyleek Williams doesn't count.
Correct.
What if he plays 40% of his snaps at 3 tech?
We're not counting Tyleek Williams.
He loves the technicality.
Yes, always.
Okay.
He wants to make it as hard as possible, which is why his game.
No, he's the only person that was involved here for like. Okay, is Derek Harmon a 3 tech? Because he's probably going to play nose for the Chiefs. So like that's why I'm asking.
I think he's a 3 tech for most teams that plays a little bit of 1 tech, but has more juice as a pass rusher.
Okay, if he counts, give me 3 tech. Although I push back against the rules here because I think Harmon's going to play a lot of 1 tech snaps for the Chiefs if they draft him.
I think you're probably right, but I think spirit of the game. We know
would Tyleek Williams.
Harmon's a better pass rusher. I'm going to take offensive tackle as well. I think I'll ask you, if I said you get an offensive tackle, a defensive tackle that pass rushes, or an edge, if I gave you those 3 positions or the field, what would you take? You'd take those 3 positions, right?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Of those 3 positions that we just talked about, over under 2.5 of them drafted in any round by the Kansas City Chiefs.
So
is it ceremonial 3 techs or only 3 techs?
Ceremonial 3 techs.
Okay.
You jerk.
It matters.
So sorry, how are we qualifying this over?
Exactly.
Edge. 3 techs, that are players that spent the majority of their time at 3 tech
in college
football.
or for
In college.
okay. Thank you.
Is that a better explanation for you?
So over under 2.5 players
of
that
those
they draft
players
from those 3 positions.
Yes.
I'm going over.
Over. So you think they're going to end up with a tackle, a 3 tech, and an edge?
Yes.
I like it. Maddie Lane.
Okay. I'm also going to go over because in typical Maddie fashion, I am finding the caveat here is that both Tyleik Williams and Kenneth Grant count as 3-techs because they split the majority of their snaps in the B gap and not the A gap. So I'm getting these nose tackles also.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm sorry. I think the 3-tech defensive tackle thing is difficult. It's not your fault. It's just because Chris is going to play.
It could have been so easy.
You should have just put.
It could have been so easy, Matthew.
This is your fault.
This is your fault.
This
This is
put
on you.
defensive tackle.
No. Yeah, you could have just put DT, but no.
You gave him the avenue to do this.
I have a reason. I was building to a conversation I want to have in a little bit.
Oh boy.
But is it about defensive tackle alignment versatility by any chance?
It's about nose tackles just in general, and my theories around nose tackles. But I will take. I'll take the under on this.
Ooh,
I think. Well, no,
which one don't they take?
I'll take the over. I lied. I'm taking the over.
Okay.
I'll take the over. I think it's close though. I think one of those positions is going day 3, and potentially round 7. Okay, safety over under 2.5 rounds. Are they going 3rd round or are they going before? Are they going 1st or 2nd round?
Oh, this could be
the
quick.
safety position.
I'm going over.
Over on safety. Yep. Okay.
Hard over. Mike Edwards.
I'm going over too. I feel like safety's probably not a position that they address early in this draft. Here's an interesting one. Running back over under 2.5 rounds.
I'm going to take a swing here and go under. I like this running back class. As we kind of talked about last week, I'd love for them to add a dynamic running back to that room. So I'm going to go under.
Maddie.
We said pick 66 is part of the under for this, correct?
Pick 66 would be part of the over. Round 2 versus round 3.
Okay, well, 2.5 is throwing me off. Yeah, I was thinking like 2 plus a half a round. That's all. Okay. I'm gonna go over.
Round 2.
I got you. I'm gonna go over. I'm not arguing this point like I am 3-tech nose tackle. I'm just asking for clarity.
I too am going over. I think this team is. I think the earliest this team takes a running back is pick 95, and I don't even think I feel great about that. I
can see one in the 2nd round. I think they should consider one in the 2nd round. I just think it's going to be slim pickings.
I think it's slim picking. I think you're right. I think it's slim pickings. I think they just kick the can down the road till day 3. I really do. I think that's where a running back goes for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think, and this will get into one of the conversations here in a second too. But I think some of these lower value positions, they might just kick the can till late in the draft. Wide receiver over under 2.5 rounds. So you can either get them on day 1 and 2, round 1 or 2. Or you can get them round 3 or later. Give me what you got.
I'm going to go over. I don't see them taking a receiver early here. Especially with the news that we've been getting with Rashee Rice and being cleared to run routes and not getting in trouble for another year. So I actually kind of like where that receiver room stands right now. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a priority unless somebody really falls into their lap, which I don't see.
I'm going to go over as well, but it's I think it's possible there at the end of round 2. I think that that might be like where we're saying like there's not going to be great running back options. I think there might be quality wide receiver options there. However, the Chiefs then again pick really quick at 66. So if I'm going to be on the fence between those 2 picks at the end of round 2 and the beginning of round 3, I'll just take the over and assume they're going, trenches with the earlier pick.
I think that's a good little strategy there. Cause 66 is round 3. That's over. That's in between round 2 or in between that 2.5 number right there. So here's the question I wanted to ask you. Nose tackle. Over under round 3.5.
I'm going under. I think there's a lot of quality. I think it's a position of need. I'm going to say under.
Okay.
Again, this gets into our confusion. Like, I don't who classifies as a nose tackle in these spots because and I don't know. I'm not trying to be it's just like, who's it going to be? Because Tyleik Williams for Ohio State, he played 3-tech. Ty Hamilton played nose tackle for them. Like, I understand we all say Tyleik Williams is a nose tackle, is a 1-tech, is a run stopper, but he played 3-tech for them. So, how are we considering it? And then with the Chiefs, whoever they draft at D tackle is going to probably play. equal snaps as a nose tackle and as a 3 tech at worst, right? So it just gets confusing for me there. I'll say under as well, because I do think they get somebody within the first 3 rounds of this draft that will play the majority of their snaps for the Chiefs at 1 tech. It's a little tricky with the way that the alignments are going to settle for this team.
And I'll jump in here. I think that's how we qualify it, is what they're going to be playing for the Chiefs. Just to because you two are going to argue all day over that. Like, if I don't step it, it's going to be what position they're playing primarily as a Kansas City Chief.
Hamilton, there's a reason that your screen is in between ours. Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
I think the Chiefs are going to try to identify their early down defensive tackle that plays on running downs and not passing downs quite as much. I think they're going to address that position in day 3 or over. I think that they're going to try it. I'm kind of wondering and theorizing. I wonder if, because of where they sit and because of just like the roster construction and moving forward and all their needs, I just wonder if they're going to just try to continue to get by on the interior with those type of players, some of those early down players. Maybe they try to find a long-term solution on the interior there to play kind of an early down defensive tackle. I think it's the over if they're going to do it. So I think it's a good defensive line draft. I wonder what, profile of player that they're going to be taking. I could see them taking that, that guy that can stay on the field on 3rd down, that can rush the passer a little bit more on the interior earlier. And I think some of these, 1 tech nose tackle type players that's going to, be an early down player. If they're going to take those guys, I think it's going to be, it's going to be the over. That's kind of the vibe I have for that right now. Okay.
I just think the gap between us is, I don't think that they're taking a guy that can only play 1st and 2nd down that early, but I think they're going to take a guy that's going to have to play as their 1 tech next to Chris Jones early. And that's where I think this still, even for the Chiefs snap counts, gets a little tricky, right? They take Shamar Turner from Texas A&M. He's probably going to play nose tackle for them a lot, even though he's not a early down nose tackle. So it's just, it gets a little tricky to figure it out. I understand what you're going for. It's just, if you're talking a pure plugger that can't rush the passer at all, I would agree. I just don't think that they have the ability to take a passing down only defensive tackle that early with their current roster.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is just like, I think with like the running back position and like the nose tackle type players, I think you're going to see them address it later in the draft. That's all. And I just kind of wonder if they try to prioritize some of these other positions. Cornerback, over under 3.5.
I'm going over. I like where that quarterback room stands right now. I think they get an extension done with McDuffie. I know there's talk of, that potentially couching for a replacement there. I don't see that with the Christian Fulton signing and all that, especially. I think we see over.
Yeah, over for me. I don't need to add anything else to that. I think it's I feel pretty comfortable with that one.
I could see them going under on it. I could see them going under and over at the same time, because this team likes to draft multiple cornerbacks in their drafts, actually. They average over 1 cornerback drafted per draft class in Brett Veach's history. So like, they like those day 3 flyers in round 7, but if there's a good enough talent, like, I could see them trying to, upgrade, considering they're going to lose Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams in 2026 and trying to get out a year ahead of them, give themselves some depth. And I think there's a positional profile that is in the top 100 that could make sense for them at the cornerback position too. I think I'm going to take the under on this. I think I'm going to go under. I think you're going to see a cornerback drafted in the first 100 picks for the Kansas City Chiefs.
So you think, because this is now settled in, you think the Chiefs are going to go offensive tackle, 3 tech, edge, corner for their first 2 days?
Yeah.
You left yourself no wiggle room.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going every single position here, I think those are the ones that they're going to be addressing, and I think the pockets of players make sense for them. So that's kind of how I see it right now. Linebacker, over under 3.5. Hamilton.
I'm going over.
Okay. Maddie Lane.
Over for me as well. I just don't think this is as good as the Chiefs linebacker room has ever been, like in recent years, right? Like, this is as good as it's been with Bolton back, Tranquil's under contract. We don't, for at least one more year. We don't know what's going to happen with Leo Chenal after this year, but like, he could come back or he could be gone. But still, this is the best the linebacker room has been. I'm not saying if there's not a talent that falls and they want to take him, am I upset? Absolutely not. I just don't think it's an overly strong linebacker class for the top 100 picks. And so I just don't think they're really going to be in a spot where they're getting a plus value like they have been when they've taken linebackers of recent years.
All right, this is more of a fun one than anything. Interior offensive line, over under 6.5. You can either take one in round 7. You have round 7 or not at all, or they take one beforehand. Hamilton, what do you have?
This is a tough one. I do think, obviously the expectation is Kingsley to compete for that left guard spot right now with Caliendo. I'm going to say under. I think it would be good to add some more competition in there, not put all our eggs in that basket. So I'm going to go under.
I'm going to go over. They drafted 3 of them in last year's draft. Like, you got to let these. And then they have Wanya Morris, who is still floating around as a swing tackle / maybe some people think he can kick inside. So they seem to have enough bodies for the interior that it's round, and we're 6. Oh yeah. So it's round 7. We're just throwing a body out there that might not make the team. Round 7's gets me safe in on the over here.
I'm taking the over on this too. So I think it's round 7 or not at all. And I would lean towards not at all just because they have so many different options currently. I mean, they've got, I think they had 10 offensive linemen kind of on their roster that were on a 53-man roster last year already.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to address tackle, it makes sense to kick Ethan Driscoll out or somebody. All love and respect to Ethan Driscoll. I really liked, what he showed last year, but you get the point. If the Chiefs are taking a first-round tackle, they're prioritizing somebody like that. The interior, I think, is pretty full, and I think they've got a lot of guys that showed the ability to play on the interior or could play on the interior that, you're right, Wanya floating around too. I think it's the over. I don't think they're taking an interior offensive lineman in this draft. So that was my poorly executed game, and now I have a little bit more respect for Maddie Lane, unfortunately. Now, to be fair, one of the contestants wasn't Maddie Lane, I think this,
Maybe you should have had more clarity.
Is it a defensive tackle on the West Coast or
there was no math? So I don't know what we're supposed to do with that.
It was literal math.
There's no challenges. Didn't have to spell anything.
Okay. Hamilton, save us with some burning questions.
No accent.
No accent. That's the big deal breaker. All right.
Hey, actually, give us one burning question because we are going log here. Give us one burning question today, and then we'll save the other
score.
Oh, this is tough. All right.
No nicknames.
All right.
Costumes gone.
With the release of the KCSN draft guide, I just want to know what's your favorite part for each of you guys? What's your favorite part of putting that together each year?
Oh,
let Maddie go first.
Me? My favorite part of putting it together. I don't know. I like the whole process. The thing is so we do it's a collaborative effort. And so everybody kind of has their positions and we kind of work together to cross grade stuff and things like that. But during the majority of the draft season, everybody's kind of locked into their stuff and not everybody starts draft stuff quite as early as I do either. So the communication about players and stuff doesn't really get rocking and rolling until after the non-Chiefs teams get eliminated because the Chiefs keep playing to the Super Bowl every year when everybody else's team gets eliminated. But it's just, I like it once everybody kind of floods to it at the same time, because then all of a sudden all the draft takes are flying from, everybody working on the guide. We actually get to converse about it a little bit more. That's my favorite time, is just having those conversations. And I also will say this is a 1B here. It's a pain in the butt, but trying to come up with player comparisons for guys is absolutely hilarious to me. I have a lot of fun with it, and I have even more fun going through and reading everybody else's player comparisons. And that's not just people that are working on the guide, but everybody, because people take them so differently. And so it's just so funny to see how people end up. It's a pain in the butt exercise, but I kind of enjoy the process of trying to find player comps for people.
I think I actually could have answered that question for Maddie, because we've had this conversation before. If he doesn't have the good discourse going about the draft, it's the worst for him. He needs and craves arguing. What? No, No, but like I think the discourse part of it, like just being able to be in a group that's kind of just going through that whole process together is definitely like one of the fun things. My favorite day is the day it gets done because it's just like it's such a and that sounds like, oh, I can't, but
Yeah.
honestly, I think it's really cool to see the whole process come together as a group. Like you start in October and you work on it together as a group and you put a finishing product out there and you all put your names to it and all that kind of stuff. Like it's fun. It's fun to finally have it kind of accomplished because it's a long tail process that you all work on together for an extended period of time. And it's really satisfying the day it goes out and there's silence as far as like, hey, I caught this in the book or this mistake happened is also just like the best feeling. Like it's just the best feeling in the world when you kind of like you put together a clean product with everybody and like it's a team effort, man. It really is. Like we have people that they go above and beyond to make sure the details are met and the expectations are met for it. It's really fun. And
real quick, my least favorite part, because we are long, I do have a least favorite part. It's really easy. Background. Having to find background information and get through that as fast as I can without wasting my writing characters is the most obnoxious thing of all time.
Part of the reason my life is so much. Here's the thing. My life was so much easier this year because we gave Matty Lane an exact number he had to hit on each page for the draft guide, and he actually did it.
Kit usually gives you like a range. He'll be like, oh, this part needs to be this much, or this part needs to be that much. And I'm like, okay, that's what you're getting. But like, if it goes over to this time, I said, no, give me the maximum number, exactly what it can be. And we're going to end just about every single one within 10 of that, 10 words of this number. And I'm going to put as little in the background section as I can because like, it just doesn't matter.
The funny thing is, like, the backgrounds, like some of our other favorite some of our writers' like favorite part to do. It's like they love to do the research about these guys.
Stuff. Goofy stuff. I'm getting out of there like 5-star recruit. These were their stats during their best year. Here are their awards. Okay, let's move on. And somebody else like tells them their life story. It's in the same time, which is so funny to see different writing styles in the same like book. But somebody else will have their life story and then their like grandmother's nickname for them, and then like their favorite pizza. And I'm like, what's going on here? But like that's how you like to write. By all means, do it. It's just that's my least favorite part. I could not get away from the background fast enough.
As the editor, I cannot tell you how much fun it is to have 6 different writing styles in the
favorite pizza. Yeah, that's incredible. But I do want to say, guys, and again, I'm not just trying to gas you guys up. I have no skin in the game here. Like I've been reading this draft guide since before I actually knew you guys and was on this podcast with you guys, and it's so clear like what a labor of love it is for you guys and the attention to detail, the care you put into it. It is the best product of its kind out there. And congratulations on another year putting it together, getting it behind you. And it really is fantastic.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. And links in the description of the show for anyone that's still listening.
And I guess you can come back next week now after those words.
We'll have Hammy's homework next week too. We're gonna do that the rest of the draft process, and we'll give him another player. If you have suggestions for someone you'd like to see, just hit us up on social media. Yeah, just and all other draft guide issues that you may see can also go there as well. But yeah, we're gonna do some Hammy's homework for next week, and we'll be back with more draft content next week. That is going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank you all so much for listening, watching, supporting. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Luca.
Over.